All right, everyone. So we have the next part in Totally Not Mark's blind Naruto review, and this one is going to be covering the Pain Assault arc, or as some people call it, the Pain Invasion arc. Now, this is the one arc that pretty much a lot of fans unanimously agree is the best in all of Part 2. And it pretty much only goes downhill from here. And while I will admit that the other arcs after this, or every arc that comes after the Pain Invasion arc, is not as good, I don't hate it as much as a lot of people seem to. Like, I don't hate the Five Kage Summit, and I only hate most of the war arc. There are some parts of the war arc that I do like, that I do think was actually well done by Kishimoto, or was pretty well written by Kishimoto. But yeah, I do have to agree that the quality never reached the level of the Pain Invasion, and it's just, I just think that this is where Kishimoto just went all out when it comes to his writing, and it just yeah, everything after this was, it didn't live up. And I think that whether you want to say that it's the actual fight between Naruto and Pain, or just Pain's assault in and of itself on the Leaf Village, and how you saw the different, Pains, how they utilized their abilities, the Kakashi versus Pain fight, and how it ended with Kakashi giving up his life to make sure that Choji can relay that information about Tendo Pain's ability and its weakness, how there's like a 5-second time limit between each use whenever he uses, Almighty Push or Universal Pull, or well, actually he didn't use it at that point. I think it was Chibaku Tensei. He also has that ability, but we hadn't seen it then, and all that in and of itself was also really well done. And it was such a holy shit moment, like when he pulled out that ability and when you saw what it could create. And you, again, it goes back to what I said before, I think in the previous video, about how Kishimoto made you understand why the Rinnegan is considered to be such a legendary dojutsu in the Naruto universe, because of what it can do. So let's go ahead and watch this video, guys. But before we do, I have to ask you, please, if you want to support the video, guys, if you want to support my channel, please, you have to hit that like button, share this video out if you're new, and also please consider hitting the subscribe button. Make sure to click the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video, because YouTube's notification system is still pretty much broken. I'm hearing from people online that they don't get notifications from people that they're actually subscribed to. I don't know what the hell's going on there, so just make sure you click on the bell icon and click on all notifications to make sure that you're notified whenever I post a new video, and also whenever somebody you subscribe to posts a new video. So I don't know what the hell's going on with YouTube. I don't know why they haven't fixed that yet. People are still saying they have problems with it. Whatever. And please comment down below with your thoughts, and also let me know in the comment section if you have any recommendations for videos you want me to react to. Just let me know about them in the comments, and I will get to them eventually. Like, for now, I'm, like I said this before, that I'm going to wait until we finish all of Mark's Naruto reviews before we get to any other videos. So let's go ahead and watch this.
This video is brought to you by Manscaped.com. And we're back with a brand new exciting episode of Mark cautiously reviewing anime while praying to every single god that he has a job when he wakes up tomorrow. I wish I was joking. I know,
yeah, that whole situation was insane.
I'm gonna cover, which I know my take will have people looking to castrate me, but hey, joke's on you, Toei already beat you to it. There are some incredible fights and shonen, some iconic moments that have stayed the test of time. Moments like the final battle in Cowboy Bebop, the final revelation of what exactly was in Eren Yeager's basement. And look, even Toei has produced some of the most awe-inspiring moments in all of the culture, with Luffy saving Ace and Goku transforming finally into the legendary Super Saiyan. My point is, Naruto is one of the most iconic animes to ever animate. And these stories that I'll be covering today show us exactly why it's held up so fondly by those that have read it. So, without further preamble, I'm Totally Not Mark, and this is my blind review of Pain's Assault in the painful, wonderful, and incredible Masashi Kishimoto's Naruto. Let's get it.
Yeah, no. Give me a second. Okay, Song's over. Let's go ahead.
Batman will be Batmaning his way onto our collective theater screens next month, and in light of this fact, I've decided to do what I've never done before. Actually attempt to learn anything about Batman. I've seen a couple of the newer films and none of the ones before 2008, which I think gives me a rare perspective. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been reading a bunch of Batman comics to build up my knowledge of the character, and over the final 2 weeks of this month, I'll be making 2 videos wherein I review every single Batman film ever made. And yes, that includes everything from the latest in the DC cinematic universe to whatever this is. And so I hope you all will join me on this journey starting next week. See you there.
こんなわしでもこの忍びの世に憎しみがはびこっているのはわかる。
Last time I covered the Itachi storyline, which came to a shocking and brilliant climax. That story had focused a tremendous amount on the dynamic between Sasuke and his brother, and with good reason. It needed the space to tell that story, and to be honest, the beginning of this next arc suffers from that decision slightly. Only slightly, however, and I'll get into that in a second. Firstly, however, I'd like to unpack Jiraiya's death and why I loved the way it was handled, and also to share some thoughts I had concerning a particular decision I found strange. First, the good. The scenes showcasing Tsunade and Naruto discovering Jiraiya's fate and their grieving respectively with the news were appropriately tragic yet beautiful. When Kishimoto dedicates time to quietly exploring a character's more vulnerable sides, I genuinely think he really shines as a mangaka. Furthermore, I really like the idea of leaving behind a riddle or cipher for Naruto that requires solving, which in this particular arc acted as a very natural means for Shikamaru to reach out to Naruto personally for help in solving this cipher.
Sorry, but I just want to go back a second. Now, I saw someone, I remember seeing someone online bring something up that I actually never realized. But dude, like, think about this. Like, he, in the moment where he knew he was about to die, he knew that he probably didn't have a lot of time. So he had to quickly write out a message where, if you remember, it's from a specific book. He remembered each page, and he specifically, like, it's absolutely insane how he came up with this message it so quickly and in such a dire situation. It's honestly pretty impressive when you think about it, and it shows you just how intelligent he actually is. Like, because if you remember, the message was in this particular book, and these are the page numbers, and the fact that he chose this letter specifically told you that it's probably the first letter in the first letter of the first sentence, and putting it all together, it writes out a message. The fact that he was able to come up with that so quickly, just right there on the spot, shows you just how impressive Jiraiya actually is and just how high his IQ must be. I mean, it's actually insane when you think about it. So sorry, just wanted to point that out real quick. All right, let's get
Shikamaru to reach out to Naruto personally for help in solving this cipher, revealing a conversation that speaks to the responsibilities of growing up that they both need to face. Shonen as a genre is always dealing with and concerning itself with children coming of age, but there isn't normally a dedication to what one should do once those years are over and where they need to find fulfillment in that part of their lives. Having turned 30 recently, I found myself resonating with that message a lot. That drive to mentor the next generation, to be the ones who buy the ramen rather than being the snot-nosed little kids, as he calls it. In other words, it's time to grow up and to stop sulking. We need more stories to glorify these more mature parts of our lives, as I think there's somewhat of a stigma for people that once you get over a certain age, that it's all downhill from there. When in actuality, it's all about perspective. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an old man. Anyways, those were all my favorite parts of the ending that really spoke to me.
I mean, I think that there's a lot of people who can, like, identify with that aspect of the story where, Kishimoto's trying to relate to the audience that there comes a point in all of our lives where we kind of have to, grow up and not be, like he said, not be the ones who have, food bought for them. Instead, we're the ones buying the food, whether it's ramen or whatever else that, you can think of. It may not be something that a lot of people want to accept. You're at the point in your life where you accept that you're not a kid anymore, and those days are behind you now, and you have to look forward, you have to move on, and now you have to be a but you have to be a grown-up. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's again just all, whether it's that or what comes afterwards, all of that put together, you can understand why a lot of people view this as the best arc in all of part two. Maybe not the best arc in all of Naruto, but definitely in a lot of people's eyes. I still haven't decided whether it's the it's my favorite, or in my opinion it's the best written. I still haven't decided yet. But yeah, it is absolutely one of the best arcs in all of part two. I don't know if it's the best in all of Naruto. That I haven't decided yet, but yeah, just again looking at this, all it does is remind me of just how amazing this series actually is.
There was, however, one aspect to it that, while a technical issue, still didn't really feel convincing to me. As I mentioned, I really like the idea of having to figure out how to decipher this cipher. It's a nice mystery to keep us entertained while we deal with the emotional outpouring on behalf of Jiraiya. However, when it came to deciphering that code, my first thought when I saw it was, oh, those numbers must refer to page numbers in his Makeout series of books, right? But then my second thought was, no, that's dumb. There's no way an author would have a comprehensive knowledge of the exact words that begin each and every page in his novel off the top of his head in the heat of battle.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, you do got to remember that in the Naruto universe, it's again, like there are a lot of characters who have like pretty high IQs. It's actually kind of insane when you think about it. I mean, you have obviously Jiraiya, Kakashi. You can say is pretty intelligent. Shikamaru, obviously. Sasuke. Let's see who else. Minato. Minato, who even Jiraiya said is like a once in a generation talent that you don't see very often. And I think, if I remember correctly, he's credited as being the youngest person to ever become Hokage in the Leaf Village. I think even Naruto was like a little bit older when he finally became Hokage. Yeah, I think he was like in his like early 30s, or maybe like in his late 20s, because Boruto and Himawari were still pretty young when he became Hokage. So he must have been in like his late 20s when he became Hokage. I think Minato was like in his, yeah, Minato was pretty young. Yeah, I think he was still in his early 20s when he died, which is actually, like when you think about it, is actually kind of sad. Same thing. Oh, and Itachi, I forgot to mention him, but he's also touted as being incredibly intelligent. So again, it's not that hard to believe, but I can't understand how someone can look at that and go, okay, hold on a minute. Like he was able to come up with all of that right there on the spot. It is a little bit hard to believe, but not so much when you realize, oh, this series is pretty much littered with geniuses.
One thing wrong, then it wouldn't have worked at all. And okay, look, I know this might sound unreasonable, but look, let's take, for example, this script I'm running right now. Or better yet, the Attack on Titan script I wrote earlier last year. That monster was over 60 pages, and bear in mind, still not as long as his novels, and I worked on it for months. Despite, however, it being shorter and therefore easier to remember than those pages from his book series, I couldn't tell you what the first word on the first page of that script is. Heck, I couldn't even tell you what the first word of this script is, and I wrote that yesterday. With that said, however, it is a cute idea, and I like how Naruto provides the insight necessary for them to solve the code, wherein Jiraiya explains that the one in control is not among the group in pain. Alright, time for Naruto Sage training. As I've said numerous times before, I'm a massive fan of training arcs. I think they add a lovely bit of variety in a story to break up the constant talking and fighting while continuously feeding into the themes of the greater narrative. This part is no different, and what I did notice during this one was, once again, despite Naruto and Sasuke's paths having diverged in a very significant way earlier in time, their core story beats are still in sync together somewhat. Take, for example, the last two arcs. Both Sasuke and Naruto have lost people profoundly important to them on a fundamental level in diametrically opposed ways that both have led the young pupils to receive significant enhancements to their prior abilities, thanks to their loved ones passing, both of which they would in a heartbeat return to life in exchange for those newly acquired powers. We've explored Sasuke's predicament already in the last video, so this arc in turn shifts the focus to Naruto once again as we follow his tutelage under the Toad Hermit. In terms of mechanical differences, once again I'm a massive fan of what this new ability means for Naruto moving forward, and I love how Naruto's pre-existing abilities allow him to advance quickly in this complex crash course in Senjutsu.
Which is, sorry, I just want to comment real quick. Yeah, so I do like that he brought this up, how, you know, both Naruto and Sasuke you know, ended up losing someone that was close to them, and that loss led to them getting a pretty significant power up. And it is a common theme or a reoccurring theme that you see in all of Naruto, and you even see it in Boruto, where Kishimoto is doing this thing where he's keeping up this theme of Naruto and Sasuke and being like this yin and yang, like both of them being, you know, both sides of the same coin. Where you have Naruto representing the light, Sasuke representing the dark. You know, that whole, like I said, that whole yin and yang thing where when something happens to Naruto, the same thing kind of happens to Sasuke. Naruto loses Jiraiya, Sasuke loses Itachi. Sasuke gets the Mangekyo, Naruto gets Sage mode, and then Sasuke gets the EMS, Naruto gets Kyuubi Chakra mode, and so on and so forth. Like, he always does this thing. And even now in Boruto, where I guess this is a slight spoiler for Boruto, although I think this isn't that much of a spoiler. Even anime watchers already know about this because it kind of already happened. But you have Naruto who lost Kurama, and you have Sasuke who lost the Rinnegan. So both Naruto and Sasuke lose a pretty, both lost actually a power up, as opposed to them actually gaining one. So I don't know whether now moving on from the series, or moving forward with the series, excuse me, whether or not he's gonna keep up with this theme. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have theorized that maybe this was like Kishimoto sort of signaling to us, the readers, that the story is going to kind of move on from these two and focus more on these new characters. Personally, I've never really believed that, because if we're being honest, and I know there may be some Boruto fans who may not want to accept this, but you gotta remember, like, Naruto and Sasuke are still pretty popular characters, and you know that Shueisha knows this, so that's why, like, they're gonna try and talk to Kishimoto and say, look, if you can find some way to keep these two in the story, like, we do still want to make money, we know people still love these characters, so we do kind of want them to, and I'm sure Kishimoto, like, he's a smart enough writer to where he can find some way to incorporate them into the story. Maybe they won't have as big of a role as they did, you know, previously or up until now, but they'll still be involved in some way, shape, or form, because again, like, Shueisha really, really, really likes making money. So yeah, I mean, if they can convince Kishimoto to involve these characters in some ways to still, like, you know, probably sell merchandise, or I've heard some people say there's going to be like Storm 5 or whatever, which I do believe they are going to make a Storm 5 eventually. And yeah, you can bet your ass these two characters are going to be involved. And if they can do kind of what they're doing with Dragon Ball right now, where they have like Kishimoto, or not Kishimoto, excuse me, Toriyama and Toyotaro, because he's also working on the manga, find some way to like give them like a new look or whatever, so they can sell toys or cards and, you know, those virtual card games, or Shinobi Strike, or whatever the hell that game is, you know, they're gonna make him do it. But anyway, but that's just, or sorry, that's just my theory. I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. If it doesn't, whatever. But yeah, just wanted to went on a bit of a long tangent with that. All right,
This idea of being able to derive power from nature and the world around him is so cool, and the means with which Naruto later learns to apply this technique in ways never before seen by even his master speaks to both the past of this series and indeed Naruto as a character himself. Someone that's capable of inventing an option C when someone gives him two options he doesn't agree with. This is a sign of a naive mindset working in a positive fashion, I think. Which again works in great contrast to what Sasuke ends up doing towards the beginning of this arc, I believe. Following his acquisition of the Eight-Tailed Spirit and the use of the newfound power courtesy of his brother, Sasuke explains to his fellow Uchiha and Akatsuki member why he can be trusted in doing what's in line with the Akatsuki mission and to go against his brother's wishes of protecting Konoha. And to be honest, it reads as pretty juvenile and overly simplistic considering everything he's been through, almost to an unbelievable extent. I understand his motivations and his reasoning on a technical level, but at this point he should realize that things are often more complicated than they might appear to be. That was the entire point of his misunderstanding with his brother. And while he might believe that he more than likely does have a greater handle on the reality of the current circumstances, the fact that he's moving forward with this line of thinking without any hesitation just proves that he still has so much more to learn, which will be entertaining once Naruto and he inevitably clash down the line. And look, okay, I know you're waiting for me to talk about the big fight that's coming up, but one small thing first. Now I know Cousin It from the Addams
Oh,
Family
okay, so yeah, yeah. Ad
Yas
time.
squad goals, but it's time to get trimmed up with Manscaped's new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer. You get this wonderful waterproof shaver and more when you purchase their new Performance Package 4.0. Along with it comes the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toning Spray to keep you smelling fresh all damn day. But did you know that for a limited time only, when you pick up the Performance Package 4.0, you also get 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxers. These cooling boxer briefs might actually be one of the coolest parts of this collection. What's the point in manscaping your bits like a pro if you're just gonna throw on some rags afterwards? Not only are Manscaped's boxers extra comfy, but they have fancy crop cooling technology to keep you cool and dry all day long. The fabric's super soft and comes in a wide range of sizes, all the way up to triple XL. And what's neat is that you get to opt into their peak hygiene plan, which means you'll get a new pair every cycle straight to your door. If all that sounds good, then head over to manscaped.com and use promo code NOTMARK20 for 20% off, free international shipping, and 2 free gifts. Underwear to your door. Your balls will thank you. Bye. Speaking more broadly for a second about this arc's pacing, there's a lot of bouncing around to different points of view early in this arc. We get Naruto's sage training, which I like, Sasuke's acquisition of the Eight-Tailed Spirit, his conversation with the Akatsuki members following that dude's community trying to track down the Eight-Tailed Spirit in him, those same folks making a plan to stage a summit, Tsunade trying to figure out Jiraiya's message, and we also have Pain's attack on Konoha. And while I can appreciate that these are all necessary points of view and do serve the story in fact, I just didn't find most of them very interesting at all once here. I think when it comes to what this arc contains and what the last arc contains, that being 2 massive battles, it's natural to have all the exposition and busy work taken care of between the more hype moments to allow space for them to breathe. And the bigger the battles, the more exposition that needs to be squeezed in between. And unfortunately, this is that case. Which is reasonable. It just so happens that this section, unfortunately, is sandwiched between the 2 biggest battles in the story so far, and I think the pacing suffered quite a lot during these early chapters as a result. Was it boring? Kind of. Was it worth what we got after this? Oh my god, yes.
Now, here's the thing. I do get what he's saying. I do. But for me personally, I don't know if I would say I found it boring, if I'm being honest. I actually kind of enjoyed them. Now, yeah, you had the exposition with Sasuke and Team Taka, and like their base or whatever the hell. I forget the place where it is. I think they did mention it, but I can't really remember it off the top of my head. Maybe one of you will let me know about it in the comments. But then you had the whole thing between the Land of Lightning figuring out what happened and how they're going to deal with it, and then you have Naruto sort of finding out about training in Mount Miyaboku, learning Sage Mode. I mean, I never found it to be boring. And then you also had Sasuke's fight with B beforehand, which animation wise I thought was pretty cool, although not really one of my favorite fights, if I'm being honest, because like this is the first fight where Sasuke, like, he has the Mangekyo, and I was kind of hoping he would come off as being a little bit more impressive than he did, but instead, like, he nearly died fighting B. Like he really did. If it wasn't for his team, he absolutely would be dead right now, or not right now, but he would have died in that fight. And yeah, I gotta admit, I was not a fan of that decision, and not really like not really a good first impression of Sasuke with the Mangekyo. And like he kind of did it. Like Kishimoto kind of did it again when Sasuke got the EMS. Like he did really, again, the first fight Sasuke is in, the first real fight where he has a chance to show off his new powers, and he doesn't really do much. Itachi's the one who did most of the work. And then later on in the war, before they get their 6-pass power-ups, like Sasuke doesn't really do much in that fight. I mean, there are some moments where if you look at them, it actually makes him look kind of impressive. But like he doesn't really get to show off his abilities for real. Like he consistently gets shown up by Naruto with his, his acts with the Nine Tails' chakra. And honestly, I don't know why Kishimoto kept doing this. It kind of made Sasuke look a lot less impressive when you consider the fact that all throughout part 2, every time he was there, he actually like kept making him, or he kept putting him in situations where Sasuke always ended up looking good. And then after the Itachi fight, it's kind of like it's kind of gone. I don't know what happened again until he got his six path power ups, where he actually started looking impressive again when he kept coming up with different strategies to help them fight Kaguya. So yeah, that's one thing that I honestly was not a fan of. Again, animation wise, it looked phenomenal. Like you can't doubt that. But yeah, the actual fight itself wasn't a big fan of it. Anyway, let's go ahead because I think we're about to get to the pain assault.
Pain versus Konoha. Pain's invasion of Konohagakure is the opening act of what ends up being one of the biggest and best fights in the series so far. And maybe because I'm a big fan of Naruto as a character, but I sincerely enjoyed this more than Sasuke versus Itachi, and I loved that fight. But perhaps it's not a fair comparison because this one had so many different people fighting to hold the line, waiting for Naruto to finish his training and to save the day. There are tons of moving parts in this one. Kicking things off with different battles held across the greater village area, the use of strategy and the implementation and acquisition of new information turns all of these fights on their respective heads, with each individual understanding that each encounter could be their last against these monsters, and that if they are going to lose their lives here, they may as well do so while gaining precious intel to help enhance the village's chances of survival. And this, unfortunately, applies to everyone, from Konohamaru all the way to the great Kakashi. The quick exchange between Pain and Kakashi once again, despite Naruto and Sasuke having steamrolled ahead in terms of ability, highlights the fact that Kakashi is still managing to remain a remarkably resourceful and focused warrior for Konoha, utilizing brilliant strategy through very convincing clones to drag out more intel from the situation regarding Pain for the use of others in this battle. Furthermore, these more desperate measures serve to act as a tremendously effective means of building tension. I mean, even Kakashi is putting out all the stops and he's struggling. But as I mentioned, there are a host of different battles taking place all over the village with a real sense of dread and hopelessness hanging in the air. Particularly when Choza is thought to be dead and Kakashi sacrifices his own safety in order to allow Choji to relay that message, that intel they gathered back to Tsunade. And once he got there, Tsunade could sense Choza's energy, but no one else's. It's at this point Kishimoto once again leans on his wonderful sensibilities with regards to these more emotional or sentimental moments. Seldom as they are, when they do show up, they really hit their mark. Having grown up being treated as though he was an outsider, despite Pain demanding to know the location of Naruto, despite him threatening everyone's lives, the people of Konoha won't sell out Naruto, as we're reminded of all he's achieved through the eyes of Konoha's citizens. It's a brilliant lens for which to view this part of the battle through, seeing what Naruto means to them and how far this story has progressed as a result. Speaking of progression, alright, I gotta say, that was really sick. And getting to see this kid, now having grown up some, once again speaks to the fostering of this new generation Shikamaru.
Jamie never actually goes anywhere after this, and yeah, and Boruto, he's not really all that impressive.
Touched on earlier as well. Naruto gave this kid some of his time and guidance, and now he's capable of performing feats such as this. The Rasengan is a fucking crazy powerful move to pull out as a surprise attack. Alright, but okay. Switching gears for a second and checking in with Naruto, he's after encountering a small, teeny tiny problem. Due to the fox spirit, unlike Jiraiya, the toads can't rest on his shoulders to facilitate this technique's charge time, which means now Naruto is faced with a specific problem unique to him. Without someone on his shoulder to focus that energy on his behalf, he now needs to figure out a way of staying still in combat in order to focus on gathering that energy without getting killed by Pain. Easier said than done, right? And, okay, somewhat troublingly, Pain eventually finds out where Naruto is, after which the unthinkable happens. Naruto versus Pain. Chaos raining from above, the entire village destroyed, and even Tsunade in way over her head trying to protect as many people as she can from the onslaught. As the dust clouds fade, there Naruto stands, ready to lay down his life for all of those that afforded him the time to prepare with theirs. There's a wonderfully tragic but exciting moment that shows itself as the ignition for this fight specifically. Now that Naruto has mastered this natural chakra business, he can sense everyone's energy, but not Kakashi's. He calmly asks if he's on a mission elsewhere, and it's all to no response. He knows his fate. A younger, weaker, and more naive Naruto would have, in this instance, exploded in anger, throwing caution to the wind as well as his strategy, practically assuring his defeat and securing everyone else's downfall. But it's different now. He's grown up. As we saw through the eyes of the villagers earlier, Naruto is no longer a child, and it's time for him to prove that in the grandest of ways, and in doing so setting an example for the next generation, choosing to carefully channel his anger into attacking the Pain gang. And boy, does he do just that. The opening gambit of this conflict is honestly brilliant and full of just the right amount of determination, motivation, and strategy. Everything I love in a good Naruto fight. We know what Naruto is fighting for, we know how far he's come, we are currently learning all the strengths and weaknesses of the Pain group, and Naruto's strategy once again is something only he can manage to pull off thanks to his seemingly bottomless supply of chakra, leaving shadow clones behind him to charge away elsewhere as batteries for the sage energy. It's a remarkably good strategy, turning a weakness into a strength. A very Naruto thing to do. And the best part of this entire opening to this fight is that the guy who has been stealing all the Jinchuriki power from all the folks in the Pain group manages to get a hold of Naruto himself. This would normally be a catastrophic failure on Naruto's part, and while it was a mistake, like always, Naruto
found a way to turn around, yeah.
Negative into a positive. Because Naruto needed to be still in order to gather that sage jutsu, that wasn't a viable strategy for approaching this battle. He would have been open to attack. However, in that hold with this guy, he can do just that, stay still, which then led to that Pain guy absorbing too much sage jutsu, thus turning him into a frog creature because he can't control it. That was such a fucking creative and cool moment, with a decent depth of cause and effect. And while it's still fresh in my mind, at this moment in time, it is my favorite switcheroo in the story. Finally, it comes to light exactly what is happening with regards to the Pain puppet and who the puppeteer is. I thought it was really cool to finally get a chance to see Nagato, since we haven't really seen him since the flashbacks with Jiraiya. Though he looks like shit now, I like the thematic significance of his mission. Through Pain, Nagato explains to Naruto his vision for the world, and in the process really puts a bunch of conflict into Naruto's mind. Through Pain, both literally and metaphorically, Nagato is showing the world what his vision for the future is and what justice he wants to bring.
こんなわしでもこの忍びの世に憎しみがはびこっているのはわかる。
And without Naruto willing to make a move, Hinata jumps in, confesses her respect and love for Naruto.
He's already dead.
And gets taken out.
Yeah. And then there it is, yeah.
He's got bones on him. This looks kind of awkward, but surprisingly cool. I didn't think it would look cool, but it actually does. In execution, with the body of the fox building itself around Naruto as the tails sprout, it's a really cool visual indication of progression towards a known endpoint, which I would imagine is the fully realized fox spirit in its physical
And
form.
this is like...
Okay, we finally gotten to the moment that you've all been waiting for. The meme fight. Okay, I'm gonna switch on my camera for this bit.
Okay, so here's the thing. I really do hope he does bring this up, because I am honestly tired of hearing this. I'm tired of people saying that, oh, this was badly animated, or oh, this looked like shit, or whatever, blah, 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 whatever. Guys, this fight was not poorly animated, okay? It's not. Please look up what the actual meaning of poorly animated is. This episode was anything but poorly animated. This was actually very well animated. Maybe, like, okay, yeah, you see some people sharing the screenshots of, oh, look how Pain looked at this frame, or oh, look how this frame looked, or this frame looked. And it's like, guys, taking a screenshot and then saying, oh, look at how poorly animated this is, that's not what bad animation is. I'm sorry, but it's not. Okay, this episode was not poorly animated. This was honestly one of the this was one of the most well animated episodes in the entire series. It is. I'm sorry, but it is. Okay, please, maybe you didn't like it. If you didn't like how it looked, fine, that's one thing, but you cannot say this was poorly animated. That is factually incorrect. Okay, please stop saying this was poorly animated, because that is just false.
I'll be talking a lot about animation, and I'm not trusting Japan's copyright laws at this moment in time. Let it be known that in preparation for this section of the video, I have read the manga and viewed the corresponding episodes of the anime that this controversial piece of animation has stemmed from.
Well, he said he's not trusting Toei Animation, but Toei didn't make the anime. It was actually Studio Pierrot, so... Or wait, was it? Or maybe Toei just animated? No, I think, yeah, it's Studio Pierrot. Yeah, no, Toei doesn't have anything to do with the Naruto anime.
Recognize that I will be attempting to give my personal opinion on a subjective but widely discussed topic on the internet, but I guess I'm a maverick like that. With that said, I will try to ground my reasoning in terms as uncontroversial as I can, and I will do so by trying to answer the question, is this a good depiction of this fight? There are, of course, those of you out there that think obviously no and obviously yes to that answer, so let's take a closer look. For me, what makes a fight scene great is multifaceted. Story, animation, artwork, and yes, those are two separate things, pacing, immersiveness, and overall storyboarding or direction of a scene. And interestingly, the animation plays a role in all of these aspects. When it comes to animation quality, I think it's a massively impressive showcase of an animator's skills in that department. The animator in question here that worked on this scene was Shinga Yamashita, and odds are you've seen his work before in the past, and not just from this scene.
Yeah, that's Full Metal Alchemist. Gone on to
direct and composite for other anime. I mean, he has been incredibly successful with the openings of Jujutsu Kaisen,
yep.
But that's Jujutsu Kaisen. That's not Naruto, and this has become a beast into and of itself. I had seen this clip of animation and I knew people didn't like it. However, it is important to keep in mind when I say animation that I am not referring to the piece's likeness to the characters.
Yeah, misleading.
Animation is the illusion of movement, and to varying degrees, different series have iconic examples of this and examples of tragically poor animation also. Sometimes in the big...
I do remember when this came out, a lot of people were sharing this around going, oh my god, what the hell happened? What did they do?
Biggest of properties in Japan. One of my favorite animators that worked on Dragon Ball Super back in the day was a man by the name of Naoki Tate.
Hello there.
He too was a controversial artist because some people loved him and others hated him. And once again, it boiled down entirely to what one as an audience member was looking for. If they were looking for crazy dynamic animation, then Tate was their guy. If they were looking for model sheet accuracy, then he wasn't. And this fight here...
Okay, so it's interesting that he brought this up, because for me personally, when it comes to Tate, I will say this. As an animator, obviously he's phenomenal. I mean, he is a legendary animator. I think if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but he also did work on the original Dragon Ball Z anime. Like, he did work on it, and I think he did also work on the Goku versus Vegeta fight, the Goku versus Majin Vegeta fight, excuse me, to be more specific. I need to go back and like look at some of the episodes he worked on in the Dragon Ball Z anime that wasn't the Goku versus Majin Vegeta fight. But yeah, he did work on the Dragon Ball Z anime, and obviously they brought him back for Dragon Ball Super. And look, if I'm being honest, like when his episodes were, you know, or when we got to sections where he worked on it, where I think he was like the supervisor for at least that sequence. I gotta be honest, like I personally, while the actual animation was good, really good, I was never a fan of how he made the characters looked, or how he made the characters look. Sorry, screwed up there for a second. That's kind of my thing when it comes to Tate. Like when it comes to how he draws the character, personally not a big fan of it. But his actual animation, like how he makes the characters move, was phenomenal. Like that is not something that you can dispute. Okay, like how he makes the characters move, amazing, but how he draws the characters, yeah, I was never a fan of how he made them kind of look like not accurate to the model sheets like he brought up. Yeah, so that's just my comments on Tate as an animator.
Here with Pain seems to tell the very same story, but in an even more exaggerated fashion. The gestures, the smears, the squash and stretch is all there in aggressive effect, and as a result the scene is filled with a ton of energy. It's exciting, it's dynamic, it's energetic, it feels alive, and moreover, for the most part, not too dissimilar to other big action episodes within this series of Naruto. However, with that said, let's take a look at the other side of this coin. Character likeness and its importance. I am a big fan of Sakuga, or high quality animation from Japan. I'm interested in the subject and I like studying it a little more closely than the average bear. And taking that into consideration, if someone values character arc consistency more than animation and movement, then that's not only perfectly reasonable, it's probably how most people feel too. And with good reason. The purpose of animation is to enhance the story that's being told through it, and one important way of achieving that desired effect is by suspending the audience's disbelief, for them to get invested in the characters and forget that they're watching animation. However, I believe one could very easily make the argument that if any animation takes someone out of the story, and the story is what you're there for, then to those people, that animation would have failed in living up to its purpose. In other words, if in this fight with Pain you found it distracting to the point of it taking you out of the story or fight that was taking place, then that animation, despite it being intentionally exaggerated and technically impressive, fails to serve the primary purpose of animation for that person, which is to tell the story in a dramatic fashion in keeping with the tone of the manga. But okay, I've explained why I think some people like it and why some people hate it. But what do I think? Well, it's complicated. When it came to this approach, I think there's a tremendous
Look at
amount
this.
of
Yeah, this.
display
Look
when
at
it
how
comes to
amazing this
conveying
looks.
movement
Come
and
on,
defensive
guys.
energy. The timing is really nice and all that jazz, and I'm also a fan of simple shapes in order to facilitate movement. So, from a philosophical standpoint, I appreciate the approach taken. However, the moments that people seem to take issue with, even I have to admit, feels like they are pushing the envelope far too far when it comes to some of the exaggerations. Again, this isn't evident of poor animation quality, certainly not, as I believe the animation to be quite brilliant here. It is, however, I think a result either of not enough time reserved for corrections or perhaps not the right direction for that scene. At least I think so. While, as I mentioned, that I appreciate the philosophies behind the approach taken, I think it veered too far into Looney Tune territory when it came to some of the choices made, which ultimately took me completely out of the moment that these scenes were trying to deliver for. So, in short, I think the artist that worked on this was incredibly talented, and I think that the vast majority was perfectly within the realms of what the show had produced before. But I do, however, think that the vision Shinjo Yamashita had for part of this final product was perhaps too far outside of what many of us, including me, consider to be within the boundaries of reasonable artistic license. When I saw this, I wasn't thinking about how awesome the fight was, I wasn't thinking about the story. I was instead thinking about the animation and how I felt that it didn't match the show's overall approach, which distracted me from my primary reason for watching anime, the story. But that's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Personally, I think there's a happy medium to be found here that would please more people than this ultimately did without alienating the Sakuga fans. Take Naoki Tate's best moments from Dragon Ball Super. These are perfect examples of this sort of loose minimalistic animation being corrected to accommodate for both stylistic consistency as well as a tremendous energy in animation. And so, I think if Yamashita had some of his cuts corrected for model correctness, it wouldn't have created as big of a shitstorm as it did otherwise online. But that's just my 2 cents. Also, I think I'll probably keep up the face cam for the rest of this video, because Lord knows I am recording this review way too late and my editor is tired. I'll probably be doing more face cam in the future too to help distance myself from the material that has, in the past, nuked my channel.
Yeah, that's
Speaking broadly about the
it's completely understandable. I mean, that's something that I've actually noticed a lot of the anime and manga YouTubers that I follow have been doing lately. Like, they provide less, like, the ones who at least don't show their faces, on camera. Like, they start to show, the actual, whether it's manga panels or actual footage from the anime, they start to do it less and less because, yeah, I think that a lot of them have just gotten tired of, whether it's Shueisha or, in this case, Toei Animation, they just got tired of their bullshit. You know, it's just because it's exhausting. I mean, I did mention this before, but I got into trouble with, you know, copyright, and it completely sucked having to deal with it, having to talk to YouTube behind the scenes and try to get them to get this resolved. I mean, it was kind of annoying because I know for a fact that I didn't break any rules, and yet they somehow still allowed they still allowed a strike to be put on my channel, and I had to, like, I was literally given no choice but to wait for the strike to just pass before I, you know, went back to doing what I normally do on my channel. And hell, one of the reasons why, I mean, some of you guys have brought up why I keep, you know, do the whole thing where I keep the volume low. You've seen it throughout this video where every time there's music, I immediately lower the volume. I've got the filter that you can see in front of the actual video. I do all these things because I kind of have to, because I don't want to deal with this shit anymore. Now, here's the thing, like, I have heard some people say that, you know, they heard from YouTube that they are planning to do something, because I think maybe even YouTube is tired of having to deal with this, because Japan does absolutely, without a doubt, completely abuse YouTube's copyright system. They do. Now, some of the blame does fall on YouTube because they did make it easy for people to just either put a claim on someone's video or just completely ask for the video to be blocked. Like, they made it way too easy, and Japan just for years has been exploiting it. And I've heard that they're planning to do something. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, I've heard from people before that, hey, they're working with YouTube to try to, you know, fix some of this shit, to try to make sure that Japan doesn't, you know, and it's not just Japan, but just companies in general, to stop them from abusing the copyright system that they have. But I mean, I've heard that before, and honestly, I'm at a point where, you know what, I'm not gonna believe anyone who says it. I don't care whether I think you're credible or not. I don't believe you. I want to actually see it. Show me the change. Okay, stop telling me that they're gonna change, and actually show me that they're gonna change. Stop telling people this and then giving them false hope. And before you know it, they're waiting months, sometimes a year, and they're looking at it going, okay, well, where's this change you said was going to happen? I mean, I know change doesn't happen overnight, especially in a big company like YouTube with such a large, you know, infrastructure. I understand that, but again, like this, we're not talking about just a few months or 1 year. This is years now. Okay, it's been years that I've been hearing people say this shit, where, you know, they say, oh, like they're hearing from the people that they know at YouTube that they're planning to do something, and I'm like, okay, well, we're here. Where is it? Where's this change you said was going to happen? Because I'm still seeing people, and not just me, but I'm still seeing people saying how, oh, they're dealing with another BS copyright strike. Whether, you know, on since I talk about anime and manga, which is the thing that is probably the most likely to get hit for a copyright strike, even though you know for a fact you never broke, you know, any copyright, you know it for a fact. So okay, well, where is this change you kept saying was going to happen? It's not here. So I'm at a point where I'm like, you know what, I need to see it. I'm not just believing anyone's words anymore. I need to see action. Okay, I need to know for a fact now that YouTube is not going to allow Japan to abuse the copyright system anymore. I need to actually see it. No more words. I'm tired of this shit. And I know I'm not the only one. So if you guys are annoyed at me doing the whole volume, you know, being low and the filter being on screen, and, well, I mean, look, like I said, you're gonna have to take it up with YouTube. They're the ones you need to talk to, not me. I will happily get rid of the filters. I will happily keep the volume at, you know, at the same level, maybe, you know, not too loud, but also not too low. I'll keep it at a good level where you guys can hear it clearly. But until then, I can't do that unless I know for a fact that YouTube is not going to allow that shit to happen anymore. I need to know. All right, sorry about that. Let's go back to the video.
Fight for a second, I thought the action was bombastic, and the contrast between how the fox fights versus how Naruto fights is appropriately stark. It helps to reinforce the dedication to strategy and technique Naruto the person is, and how inconsiderate the fox is to the village and world around him, interested only in destroying what stands in opposition to him, which, as it happens, helps to elevate one of the most surprising scenes I've yet come across. For the last 2 volumes, this story has built up to one gigantic climax within this fight, and interestingly, Kishimoto subverts this expectation through this scene. Naruto's first meeting with his father, the 4th Hokage. And as I'm sure many of you are aware at this point, I've never been a massive fan of fight scenes unless they have compelling ties to the narrative by way of mystery or whatever. But I am and always have been a massive fan of quiet, introspective moments full of character-rich dialogue, and that's exactly what this is. During this encounter, the 4th Hokage is collected, compassionate, and wise, while Naruto is reasonably upset and elated at what he's learned. He physically lashes out at his father before basking momentarily in the fact that he's the 4th Hokage's son, which is again such a Naruto thing to do, particularly during a time where he's made to feel confused and uncertain thanks to pain. He feels like a child. There's a neat conversation about the philosophy surrounding what Naruto is struggling with, what pain has taught him his motivations were, and in response to that, the 4th Hokage explains that where there's love, there will be hate, and the duty of the shinobi is to fight the hatred before it turns into pain and suffering. The 4th tells Naruto that he doesn't know the answer to his problems, but believes that Naruto will find the answer himself, before sealing away the fox spirit and leaving Naruto to return to the battle. The words of encouragement echoing in his ears from Kakashi, Jiraiya, and now his father. He stands once more to the challenge that pain presents him, that Nagato presents him. Once again, there are some great visuals where the benefits of the Sage technique, even when not in use, become apparent. Thanks to that chakra being used in place of his own natural supply, Naruto's clones explode onto the page in a beautiful spread, which again reminds me of the story's beginning when he first used that technique, setting himself up for the Rasengan. What a brilliant move. The climax to this conflict is, instead of action, a conversation. A philosophical conversation wherein Naruto expresses a desire, Nagato explains his pain, and Naruto shows his maturity. Again, something I need to make clear is that my videos aren't a substitute for the original material, so I won't be explaining exactly what's said, but instead giving my impressions on it. But I think right from the beginning, when Naruto expresses that he did not see his defeat of pain as a victory, I thought again that this is another wonderful step towards the theme of maturity for Naruto. But the story also never shied away from the ugliness of hatred. He can't just ignore that Nagato killed Jiraiya and Kakashi, but his memory of his master's parting lesson can stop him from continuing this cycle of violence, reinforcing that it is a choice, that you can choose not to hurt people, to not cause more pain.
こんなわしでもこの忍びの世に憎しみがはびこっているのはわかる。
Nagato's backstory was interesting, but a line that stood out to me was this: I will rule this world and make the suffering stop. This is a very naive and overly simplistic view of how the world should be under him. Naruto's
Yeah, I
journey in
mean,
this arc
it does make sense because, you know, they did say it when, or Yahiko did say it when he was still just a kid. And one thing that you see all throughout Naruto is that you have people who were young, like, again, you had Yahiko, you had Naruto, and, you know, some other characters that, again, I'm going to remember off the top of my head, is that they always have these ideals when they're kids, and, you know, then they grow up and they realize, oh, the world's not really, you know, as simple as I thought it would be. And one thing that I thought actually, and I don't know if he's going to talk about this, and I mean, there's not much left to the video. I don't know if he's going to mention this, but during their conversation between Pain and Naruto, you know, when he asks him, or, you know, okay, so you're trying to get payback against me for what I did to your village. And then he asks, okay, well, you know, what about my village? What about all the crap that you guys did to me and my people and my home? How you and the other villages consistently used our land as a battlefield, and you didn't even care about the people that you were inconveniencing. You didn't even care about the fact that every time you had your wars, you left our land as a, you know, as a wasteland. Everything was destroyed, our homes, our families. How many of us died because you were serving your own needs? And yet, when he brings that up, and to me, I always thought that was interesting because it's a moment where you have someone who, you know, again, is pretty young, pretty naive, probably grew up thinking that their home is like, you know, it's great, it's amazing, and then someone comes along and reminds you that, yeah, dude, your village didn't have, you know, a good history. Your village is not full of these angels that you think that they are. And when he asks him, okay, well, what exactly is your answer? Like, what are you gonna do to resolve all this hatred that's in this world right now? And Naruto just responds with, I don't know. And I love that because it shows you again how much he's grown, because he knows that, like, I might not have an answer. And even I think even into the Boruto era, like, he knows that he's still looking for that answer. He like, he's trying to find some solution to all this hatred that's in the world, because it's like what, it's like what he just said. And even Madara, you hear him bring this up later on in the war arc, where he says, as long as there's love, there's going to be hate. And as long as there's winners, there's going to be losers. And those losers are also going to have hate, form within them. And that hate is going to cause them to take it out on other people. And it just starts to spread more and more hate. Like, that's just the world that we're living in, which is why Madara and Obito believe that, well, I mean, if that's the case, then there's just no helping this world. I mean, we might as well just go into the infinite Tsukiyomi, because at least there, even though it's an illusion, even though it's not real, at least it's better than what we have here in real life, because trying to achieve peace in, the real world is just not possible. And you had Sasuke, who kind of, agreed with them, but at the same time, he had a different solution. Like, his solution was just to completely destroy the system that's already been in place and to create something new. And obviously, Naruto didn't really agree with that. And, now we're still living in the same world. And you're looking at a lot of things in the Boruto era that is honestly kind of proving that, not only Madara, but Sasuke were actually correct in their assumption. Like, you needed something new. You can't keep going with the system that's already been in place, because that system led to these things happening. And even though the world now is, in the Boruto era currently is better than what it was before, that doesn't mean that those conflicts don't still exist. And the only reason why they didn't just fly into a war for a long time is because they knew that one village in particular had two really strong WMDs in their hands. So yeah, not really a good idea to start a fight with them. I think even they knew that wasn't really a good idea. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and finish off the video.
Has been about him accepting his role in becoming an adult, needing to learn patience and to think things through and to prepare the world for the next generation. And in a way, that's exactly what Nagato wants to do too, however, with a lot more purposeful suffering. Jiraiya is quoted as saying, "A person matures, grows up, when you experience pain." And as I'm sure you've noticed, this is a perfect continuation to the themes of growing up and maturity at play here too for Naruto. The situations regarding Nagato and his issues surrounding the illusion of peace for these larger nations following times of bloodshed is a really interesting perspective and a tragically honest experience he and many others have shared. And Naruto doesn't necessarily have any solution for it, other than that he won't give up and he will find a solution to this problem, admitting that he still hates him but understands why he is the way that he is, and most importantly decides not to hurt him. Naruto asks for Nagato to believe that he won't harden with pain, to believe that he won't grow resentful or vengeful, that he will earnestly seek out peace in the name of his master and for the good of the world. Where Nagato's pain pushed him to embrace a negative path, Naruto's helped him to embrace a positive one. With this conversation speaking to Jiraiya's lesson to Nagato, Naruto has every reason to hate and despise Nagato for everything that he's done. However, after hearing his story, Naruto can use his own life experiences, his own pain to empathize and sympathize with Nagato, much the same way he did with Gaara during the Chunin exams. Thus avoiding conflict, Naruto's pain was a source of peace in this instant. This manages to reach Nagato, and while this ending might feel much like Nagato's thoughts on the matter, a little overly simplistic, as a set of lessons to live by, I think there's some great stuff here that's all rooted in Naruto as he exists as a character. I'm not sure I'm a massive fan of the resurrecting of shinobi and people who died during the battle, as it does remove a lot of the consequences from this arc.
I think a lot of people were not really a big fan of this. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either, because it does kind of, like he said, kind of lessen the, or take away the consequences of everything that happened here.
But is it worth it for when Naruto arrives back at Konoha to a hero's welcome? I think absolutely. The lonely boy that once sought after recognition and acknowledgement is now the hero of his village, a beloved member of the society who is now armed with a new perspective for which to better understand Sasuke, who he seems to be destined to collide with very soon. How will this pan out? I don't know, but if the author notes are anything to go by, or these volumes that are slowly dwindling behind me are any indication, it's that we are quickly heading for the home stretch. Will it be good? Will I like it? I don't know, probably. But if you do want to continue with me on this journey, please consider subscribing. It costs nothing and means the world to myself and my team. But that'll do it for this week. I've been Toy Not Mark. I'll see you all next week, and thank you so much for watching.
Okay, yeah, I gotta pause right here. I don't want to deal with the music, but yeah, so there you go. Again, this was another good video. Seriously, like, he makes really really good videos where he breaks down a lot of his points and his thoughts on what it is that he's reviewing, and I'm looking forward to next time where we look at this. Although, just to let you guys know, I know I said you know what, never mind, forget what I said. So yeah, next time we're going to be looking at part 9, the great soccer debate. I think I know what he's going to talk about, but yeah, we're going to be looking at the 5 Kage Summit. Guys, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like and share this video out there. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, and please check to make sure you're still subscribed. Hit the notification bell for notifications on every time I post a new video, and comment down below with your thoughts, and as well as let me know any recommendations you have for videos you want me to react to here and give you guys my thoughts on. Just let me know about them in the comment section down below, and I hope I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye for now.